If you haven't seen it yet, after you watch this video, I urge you to watch James Freeman's last upload entitled, "These Are For My Safety Officer." In the video, James holds a clipboard, asks a law enforcement agent the same kinds of silly questions they ask us, and at one point, he puts on a pair of rubber gloves, letting the cop know that he's being uncooperative and being forthcoming while evasively answering James' questions.
How long have you worked for the department?
30 years.
30 years? Okay. What's your current salary?
What's the gloves for?
It's just, it's policy.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever someone's uncooperative or doesn't tell me what I want to know, it's policy to put gloves on. I don't know, again, I don't know,
Okay.
I don't question why we do the things we do, it's just policy.
Okay.
And you are being quite uncooperative.
How am I being uncooperative?
Well, I need to know about the safe. That's what I was brought here to, what I was sent here to ask about.
Okay.
Now, there's an important reason I'm covering this, and it has everything to do with psychology, the way our minds work, and how we're all conditioned to believe and act. There's actually a real psychological phenomenon that underpins the humor and success of James' social experiment. While we may not be able to articulate exactly what it is that resonates with us in this video, we all recognize that there's something powerfully educational and downright disturbing about how people respond to a guy with a clipboard in his hands. And believe it or not, there is a psychological term for it. It's called the clipboard effect. Now, it's a silent signal, but it tells people how to act and respond to other people who may be perceived as an authority. And as most of us know, we are forever locked into an incessant psychological operation where our minds have been and are being conditioned by social engineers to think and act in a way that benefits unseen forces. Rarely do these psychological operations benefit you. Edward Bernays addressed this psychological operation in his book, Propaganda, with regard to the minds of the masses being molded by those who hold power in government. He said, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. In almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind." This barrage of ceaseless propaganda has affected all of us to one degree or another. Before we get into the invisible power of James' clipboard and the clipboard effect, let's talk about the fact that most of us have had our minds molded by another psychological phenomenon, the uniform effect. Now, the uniform effect works hand in hand with something called the authority bias. The authority bias describes our tendency to be more influenced by the opinions and judgments of authority figures, or people we believe to be in authority. And as we've all seen, this bias can actually lead people to accept information or follow instructions without critically evaluating the content, simply because it comes from a perceived authority figure. And in my opinion, this was never made more clear than in the disturbing Milgram experiment. This was a series of social psychology experiments conducted by Stanley Milgram in the 1960s to study obedience to authority figures. Now, here's how it worked. Participants were instructed to administer what they believed were real electric shocks to another person who actually was an actor, but the participant believed he was a real person actually getting shocked. And they got shocked whenever they answered questions incorrectly. The teacher or participant was told by a man with a white lab coat and a clipboard to increase the shock level with each wrong answer, even when the learner or the actor protested or seemed to be in distress. Now, despite protests and cries of agony, a lot of these participants continued to obey the experimenter's commands, which suggests that people are willing to follow orders from an authority figure even when they conflict with personal morals or ethics. The thing that shocked the psychologist the most at the time was that a whopping 65% of participants went all the way to the highest shock level, which would have certainly led to death. And this highlighted the power that a perceived authority figure had on the minds of average people. So the uniform effect produces dramatic and disturbing results, not only in the observers of the uniform, but also in the wearers. For the wearers, the uniform clearly defines an individual's role or position within a group or organization. This can enhance the wearer's sense of belonging and commitment to their role, boosting morale, an inflated sense of identity, and a propensity for greater evil. Wearing a uniform can also increase the wearer's perceived authority and can lead to increased confidence, and in a lot of cases, overconfidence. And this is because uniforms are often associated with responsibility, expertise, or a particular status. And like we've seen in so many videos, uniforms can offer a sense of immunity and anonymity, allowing individuals to perform their duties without having to worry about what might happen to them should they engage in actions that, result in the harm of others. And then there's behavioral conformity. Uniforms can influence behavior by setting expectations for conduct. If all your buddies wearing the same uniform are doing something bad, well, it must be okay to participate in the same action. Kind of like they did to Tyree Nichols in Memphis, Tennessee. So whether this cop knows it or not, he's participating in the uniform effect, and therefore in a very effective psychological operation. Now, the clipboard effect works on the same psychological principle, authority bias, except the fascinating thing about this is that James' social experiment comes closer to canceling out the uniform effect, because now the guy in the room that's assumed to be the authority figure is being treated like the subject of an investigation rather than walking in the role as the one who's the investigator. Now, the important thing to remember here is that as an authoritarian prop, the clipboard can only work if the guy holding the clipboard is confident and, at least to one degree or another, partially believes he has authority over the other guy that he's investigating. One powerful way to cunningly and casually increase the effectiveness of the clipboard effect is to just put the activity on a higher source, like an unseen authority. In this case, James uses Bao as his boss, who insists that his employee, James, just has to get the job done. It's like, hey, I'm just doing what I'm told here.
What are you looking for?
Just conducting an investigation.
For who? For what?
My supervisor asked me to come and do it.
Who?
Bao. Did you want to talk to him? You want me to get him on the? I can get him on the phone if you. Do you want?
Who's he from? Supervisor for who? For what?
For Here, I'll go ahead and.
I'm not going to talk to him.
Oh, okay.
And that's what cops do all the time. They abdicate personal responsibility when their actions clearly conflict with what others view as moral or ethical. I was just following orders. I'm just doing my job. I didn't write the laws. I just obey them. These are all attempts by a cop or a Nazi soldier to put the consequences for an evil act on the order giver, as the order follower attempts to evade punishment.
I hope you can understand I'm just doing my job.
Well, what is your job?
My job is to conduct an investigation here. I'm just doing my job.
Well,
I can tell you're frustrated, but do you have problems with authority?
no.
Okay, are you
Not as long as they have the authority.
are you a sovereign citizen?
It's a mechanism of cognitive dissonance. When there's this mental disharmony, there's an attempt by cops to paint a picture that lessens the scrutiny on them when everybody knows they just performed an immoral act. An act where if you or I did the same thing, we'd be thrown into jail. This is the danger of losing your personal identity in a crowd, especially if the crowd is a crowd of law enforcers. They want to diffuse personal responsibility at all costs. And the more officers who engage in this, the easier it becomes from each individual officer in the thin blue line. So what we have here in this video is a clash of authoritative symbols: the uniform symbol of authority and the clipboard symbol of authority. In my opinion, James' video should get tens of millions of views. This is like the new Milgram experiment. And everybody should see it because it subtly and powerfully displays the effectiveness of the very symbols we've all unwittingly fallen prey to. We're constantly being psychologically influenced by symbols of authority and visual cues by which we've been conditioned to respond to. And if we don't stop and ask why we believe what we believe or do what we do, we're going to continue doing the same things, expecting different results. And if we keep doing what we've been doing, well, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting: more tyranny and mental manipulation. I'll leave the link to James' video in the description. If you visit him, let him know Here's the Deal sent you. If you got something out of this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, like this video, and share this video with everybody you know. I'll see you in the next one.